What are the best names for baseball teams all around the world? Depends who you ask, really. Everyone's got their own opinions, and today I'll be sharing mine. It's always nice to find a name that sticks out. In baseball leagues around the world, it's so common to find teams called Giants, Tigers, Lions, and Eagles, or in Spanish, Gigantes, Tigres, Leones, and Águilas. Pirates, Indians, and Dragons are also quite common. Some of those teams have been around for a long time, going back to a time when it was common to just borrow names from another league. If the country next door had a Tigers team, you felt like you needed one too. And those teams went on to form their own traditions and rivalries under those names, sometimes in the same uniforms, and they don't feel the need to change it now, just because they weren't the first ones with that name. Some names that have been around forever would not be taken seriously if they were proposed today. Naming your team after the color of your socks goes back to a time when professional sports were a new thing, and no one had ever given much thought to what a team's name should be. Teams had different cities and wore different colors, so they went with that. Over a century later, some teams still have those names, and we think nothing of it. I would strongly oppose any suggestion to change those names. At the same time, I would never think it's the best name either. Come to think of it, I really don't have a best name in Major League Baseball. The newest names have been around for at least 20 years, and most have been around for over half a century. The names are so common to us, and we all have our biases, that might make us choose against a good name in favor of a more regular name. The best judge for Major League names would be someone less familiar with the team names, someone new to baseball, maybe from another country. If you fit that description, leave a comment. Let us know what you think is the best Major League team name. As for me, in this video I will be leaving out Major League Baseball. However, that doesn't mean I'll be skipping over North America. In the minor leagues and independent leagues of North America are where you'll find the wildest names. Many of the teams are new, and names were chosen by fans in a naming contest, and it's fun to see what each little city came up with. But I'm not just going with the craziest names here. Actually, sometimes they go overboard with that and it doesn't sound very good. I like a name that's unique, creative, suits the sport and the area it's representing. An added bonus if the city and mascot names sound good when they're said together. Sometimes I just like the way the name rolls off the tongue. But you have to be careful there. We are talking about team names from around the world, from many different languages. A name might sound really cool when you say it to yourself, and then you come to find that the meaning of the name is something so ordinary. Again, these are all just going to be my opinions on the best team names. Everyone's got their own opinion, and I want to hear yours. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think the best team names in the world are. Remember, there are no wrong answers. I'll save North America for last. Let's take a trip around the world first, starting in the Far East. In Japan, most of the teams have been around for a really long time. Therefore, the names are pretty common, most notably the Giants and Tigers. The newest team is 20 years old, and was given the oh-so-common name of Eagles. The one name that gets the attention of a lot of foreign fans is the Hokkaido Nippon Ham Fighters. That is until they realize the mascot is the Fighters, not the Ham Fighters. Nippon Ham is the sponsor. The one I'll go with is the Yokohama DNA Baystars, which the team was renamed to in 1993. The city is on the bay, so they could have gone with anything related to it. Bay Wolves, Bay Sharks, or whatever. Nothing really special about the name, but there's not a whole lot to choose from with the 12 NPB teams. I just wish they'd drop the sponsor in the name and go back to simply Yokohama Baystars, like they were just over a decade ago. That's just among NPB teams. Independent league teams have been a little more creative with the naming of their teams, though the names often come out sounding really strange, like the Kagawa Olive Gainers from the Shikoku Island League. One of my favorites, though, is the Gunma Diamond Pegasus from the BC League. The Korean League has been around since the early 80s, and in the 80s and 90s they started out with a lot of borrowed names. Giants, Tigers, Lions, Eagles, Twins, etc. The newest name is the Landers, which has been used for just a few years, named because of the airport located in the home city. But of all the names you could choose relating to aviation, I think there were a lot better choices they could have gone with. The name in Korea I like best is the NC Dinos. 2 reasons. Dinosaurs are some of the most powerful of all animals to have ever lived, but because of the long scientific names given to them, the individual species don't make good mascot names. But the simple name of Dinos works well. Also, since they use corporate names rather than the city names in the KBO, it sounds better to me if it's 2 letters rather than a whole corporation name. So, NC Dinos sounds best to me. Taiwan I've always associated with silly names, mainly just because of the monkeys and brother elephants. A name from the past I really liked was the Makoto Cobras, but we're only choosing existing names here. Fubon Guardians had a nice, unique name until Cleveland decided to use it. Now it doesn't sound so good. The name I like is the Weichuan Dragons, for no other reason than I like the sound of it. Dragons are a common mascot in the baseball world, and Weichuan is just a food company, but I like the way it sounds when they're said together. The best name in the Australian League was the Auckland Tuatara. New Zealand's only professional baseball team was named after an ancient genus of reptiles found only in New Zealand. Unfortunately, the team folded last year and is no longer in existence. The name I like here is the Canberra Cavalry. It wasn't even the team's first choice. They were going to go with Canberra Colts. I guess they really wanted a mascot starting with C to match the city name. But I think Cavalry is better anyway. Not too many clubs with that name, and it goes well with the city name. Now to Latin America. I will avoid choosing any team named Leones, Tigres, Gigantes, or Aguilas. Those names have been done to death in that part of the world. Indios, Piratas, and Toros are also easily found from one country to another. But every league in this part of the world's got at least one name that really stands out. It wasn't hard to choose here. In Venezuela, you've got to love the name Navegantes del Magallanes, which means the Magellan Navigators, named for Ferdinand Magellan, who led the world's first expedition to circumnavigate the globe. Navigators is a cool name anyway. Combining it with Magellan's name makes it perfect. Honorable mention to another LVBP team, Bravos de Margarita. With words like Bravo and Margarita in the title, you can't help but think of a big celebration when you hear the name. In Colombia, 4 teams and 2 of them are named Leones and Tigres. Another one is Vaqueros de Monteria, which has a nice ring to it, but it just means the Monteria Cowboys. And the name Vaqueros is not unique to the Colombian League. The name I like here is Caimanes de Barranquilla, named after the Cayman alligators native to the area. Also the most successful team in Colombia. They just won another title earlier this week. In Panama, teams appear and disappear so often it's hard to know which teams are currently in existence. This year there are only 3 teams participating, Metro, Aguilas, and Federales. The first one has no mascot. Aguilas, too common. Federales makes me think of the federal government, so no. I'll go with Astronautas de los Santos. They are an existing team, just not playing this year. It means astronauts, which I don't hear very often, and it's a good name for a team. Nicaragua. 5 years ago I maybe would have skipped over this league. Back then there were only 4 teams, and they were Leones, Tigres, Gigantes, and Indios. Though I give a little credit to Leones de Leon, or the Lions of Lion. City's called Lion, mascot is the Lion. In Mexico there's a city called Lion too, but they've got a different mascot. Then there's a team called the Lions playing in a different city. It can be a little confusing when you just see LEO in the box score. But the newest expansion team in the LBPN got it right. Tren del Norte, meaning the Northern Train. That was the nickname of the local soccer team, and when they got an expansion team in the baseball league, they decided to make it the actual name of the team. Now if they could find a southern city in Nicaragua, give them the next expansion team and call it the Southern Train, that would be just brilliant. Mexico, 2 leagues, so I'll name 2 for this country. In the Winter League, to an English speaker who doesn't know much Spanish, some names stick out as sounding really cool at first. Tomateros, Cañeros, Naranjeros, until you see that they just mean tomato growers, sugarcane growers, and orange growers. Those names have been around a long time and there's no need to change them, but teams named after local agriculture is just a little too simple for me. So there's not a lot to choose from in the LMP. The best one I think is Charros de Jalisco, meaning the horsemen. It's a good mascot, and starting this year, Charros will have a team in both the LMP and the Summer League, the LMB. But I've got a different choice in the LMB. That would be the new expansion team, Conspiradores de Querétaro. In English, the Querétaro Conspirators. Never heard of Conspirators as a team name. I don't know if there's any special meaning to it, but it was a good choice. In Cuba, the team name I like the most belongs to the most popular and successful team, Industriales. The mascot associated with Industriales is Leones, which I said I wouldn't choose. But in Cuba there are no official mascots, and the team is almost always referred to simply as Industriales, or the Industrials. No other words necessary. Industriales by itself is perfect. If I were to choose a mascot name in Cuba, it would have to be Leñadores de las Tunas, the Lumberjacks, though there is another team in Sweden also called the Lumberjacks. In the Dominican Republic's Lidom, 6 teams and 5 of them have the really common names of Leones, Tigres, Gigantes, Aguilas, and Toros. Only one name sticks out, and that is Estrellas Orientales. It means the Eastern Stars. So actually you find this as a name for an all-star team in East-West All-Star games in other countries too. Nothing incredibly unique about it, but there was a lot more thought put into naming this 114-year-old franchise than any other in Lidom, and most other teams anywhere in its time. 6 teams in Puerto Rico. After Leones, Gigantes, and Indios, we have some unique names. RA12 is the newest one, owned by and named after Roberto Alomar. No mascot, and the name is too much centered around one person, so I don't really like it. Cangrejeros de Santurce is a good name. It means crabbers. But putting the city and mascot together, it sounds a little too long. I think Cangrejeros would sound better if used by a city with a one-syllable name. So my choice here is Criollos de Caguas, the Caguas Creoles. The two words just sound good together. Over to Europe. In the Netherlands, you've got Pirates, Twins, Pioneers, Penguins, a couple teams with no mascot like HCAW and DSS Kinheim. The one I like is Neptunus. Not sure why exactly it's called that, but it's the same name as the Roman god of the sea, Poseidon in Greek, presiding over the sea, storms, and earthquakes. Definitely a name associated with power. And a powerful team they are, 19 league titles. In Italy, 30 teams at the Serie A1 level, but almost all of them just go by the city name, often followed by baseball club. I guess here I choose Godo Knights. Not a bad name, but really just chosen by default. In the Czech Republic, you've got teams with English names like Eagles and Arrows, Czech names for dragons and hippos. The name I like best here, though, is Trebek Nuclears. Though nuclear might be a controversial word in some places, it's no doubt an explosive name for a team. It's not like they're calling it the nuclear bombs, nuclear waste, or the nuclear disasters. Just nuclears. Good name. In Germany, one of my favorite names of all, the Paderborn Untouchables. Great name. Team was established in 1990, just a few years after a movie of the same name was released. The team's been really good in recent years. I'm waiting for them to have a really dominant year so we can all say this team is untouchable. One more team in Germany I've got to mention, the Hamburg Steelers, played in the city of Hamburg, likely what the hamburger was named after. And look at the spelling of Steeler, has nothing to do with the metal, featuring some kind of robber. Not sure if the McDonald's character was the inspiration for the team's name, but it seems likely to me. Okay, now we've landed in North America. As I said, we won't bother with MLB, and we skip the lowest levels as well, since the Dominican Summer League and the Rookie Leagues, the Arizona Complex League and the Florida Complex League, just use the same names as the MLB teams they're affiliated with. That leaves us with the leagues from low single A to AAA. The AAA teams don't have the really funny names you'll find at the lower levels. Some of these teams have been around a really long time, and when players reach this level, one call-up away from the Major League level, the names are taken more seriously. So let's get this one out of the way first. In the International League, I choose a very simple name, the Louisville Bats. It's the only city that could get away with such a simple name. It's a dual reference to the many bats flying around there, and to the Louisville Slugger baseball bats, company which is headquartered there. Louisville Sluggers would have been a good name for the team too, but that would only have a single meaning. Besides, that's the name of their ballpark. Another name I like in the International League is the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. Definitely a name that sticks out, but I've never thought of a pig as a good mascot, no matter what word you put in front of it. I have a hard time choosing one in the Pacific Coast League. Salt Lake Bees, a little too simple. Sugarland Space Cowboys, a little too much. I guess I go with the Round Rock Express by default, taken from the Ryan Express, nickname for Nolan Ryan, who ended his career with the Rangers, and owns this team. AA leagues, first up the Eastern League. There are some silly ones here. The Rumble Ponies, the Akron Rubber Ducks. Bowie Bay Sox is a good way to use the Sox name without just simply adding a color. The one I'll go with, though, is the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, named after a mammal that lives in the state, neither a fish nor a cat. A lot better than the original name they had chosen, the New Hampshire Primaries. Southern League, well, the name that stands out the most is the Rocket City Trash Pandas, an obvious reference to raccoons. Not bad, but who wants trash in their team name? Biloxi Shuckers is a good one, related to the city's oyster and seafood industry. But the one I choose here is the Pensacola Blue Wahoos. Wahoo is the name of a local fish, and Pensacola is the home base for the Blue Angels, so naturally that's the color that should be used. Texas League, home to the Corpus Christi Hooks, the Frisco Rough Riders, Wichita Wind Surge. Not exactly sure what the origin of that is, but it's got a nice sound to it. My choice here is the Tulsa Drillers. It wasn't even a Tulsa team originally, but it fits due to the oil industry there, so they didn't change it. The name could have a baseball-related meaning as well, perhaps a warning to opposing batters coming to play in Tulsa. Down to high single A, first up the Midwest League. Mostly simple names here, Chiefs, Cubs, Captains, Carp, Dragons. Wisconsin Timber Rattlers is a pretty good one, but my choice here is the Lansing Lugnuts. The city and mascot names blend well together, and Lansing is near Detroit. Just like Pistons, the Lugnuts name has an obvious connection to the area's industry. Northwest League, two names I really like here. One is the Hillsboro Hops, double reference to the production of hops in the area, the mascot's name is Barley, and a reference to a few baseball terms, such as a short hop. My favorite, though, is the Tri-City Dust Devils. The name Devils has almost been overdone, with names like Red Devils and Blue Devils, but the name Dust Devils makes for a good variation. South Atlantic League, few good names here. Hudson Valley Renegades is a good one. Greensboro Grasshoppers, not enough teams named after insects in my opinion. My choice, the Rome Emperors. I've said before that if Rome, Italy ever got a major league team, they should name it the Rome Senators. Not only would it revive an old major league team name, but the word senator, the elected government official, actually came from ancient Rome. But a senator is merely a government representative, while an emperor's got all the power. If your city's already named Rome, which Rome, Georgia is, there's no better name. Low Single A, California League. Honorable mention to the Visalia Rawhide. I like that name. Number 1 goes to the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes. In an area with a lot of earthquakes, the name makes sense, just like tornadoes in the Midwest or hurricanes on the East Coast. The city name is already pretty long, so it makes sense to shorten the name to just Quakes. Carolina League. A lot of local animal names used here. Mudcats, shorebirds, wood ducks, fireflies, pelicans. All decent choices, of course. My favorite is the Kannapolis Cannonballers. With a city called Kannapolis, anything with cannon would seem obvious, but I think it would have been better if they simply called them the Kannapolis Cannons. Florida State League. The best name belongs to the Jupiter Hammerheads. Jupiter is already a name associated with size and power. Largest planet in the solar system, named after the Roman god, variation of the Greek Zeus. Add to that the hammerhead shark. Then you've got the power of the seas, the power of the sky, and the power of the cosmos all in one team. Award for the worst team name goes to the Tampa Tarpons. I'm sure there's a good reason for the name, but I can't say or read the name without tampons coming to mind. Arizona Fall League. All the names here are good. Glendale Desert Dogs, Mesa Solar Sox, Salt River Rafters, Scottsdale Scorpions, Surprise Saguaros. My pick is the Peoria Javelinas. Don't know what it means, I just like the name. Independent leagues. The American Association's best names belong to the former teams. Amarillo Thunderheads, Texas Airhogs, Wichita Wingnuts, Joplin Blasters, Houston Apollos. Among existing teams, I'll say the Gary South Shore Railcats. Bit of a long name, but it sounds good when you put it all together. Atlantic League. A few names I like here. The York Revolution really makes sense considering York, Pennsylvania's role in the American Revolution. Hagerstown Flying Boxcars is unique for sure. The one I choose here, though, is the Spire City Ghost Hounds. They were definitely looking for a unique name when they held their name in the team contest. Other choices were the Bone Shakers, Rail Frogs, Sawbones, and Screaming Alpacas. I think I would have voted for Bone Shakers. How about you? Pecos League. Some really good names here. Bakersfield Train Robbers is a good one. Any city that was part of the Old West could use it. We don't like to root for criminals, but train robbers are mostly a thing of the romanticized past, so it's okay. Colorado Springs Snow Socks. Good use of the traditional Sox name in a place that's very snowy. And yes, snow socks are a thing. Dublin Leprechauns, just like the Rome Emperors. Good way to make use of the city's name. But the best would have to be the Roswell Invaders. Of course, Roswell was going to choose something related to the UFO crash that made their city famous. A lot of names they could have gone with. I'm glad they didn't choose something over the top. Something simple but not commonly used. Invaders would be a controversial name if you're talking about an invading army, but if you're talking about an alien invasion, it's all good. Pioneer League. Some names that stick out. Grand Junction Jackalopes, Rocky Mountain Vibes, Missoula Paddleheads. My choice, the Glacier Range Riders. Instead of going by the city name, it's named after nearby Glacier National Park. Range Riders was the name of an old TV Western. I don't know if it has any other meaning, but the words put together make a nice combination. Frontier League. A lot of powerful names in this league. Lake Erie Crushers, Joliet Slammers, Windy City Thunderbolts. The newest team debuting this year is my choice, the New England Knockouts. The fans actually voted for the name Chowderheads, but the home city of Brockton has a history of producing boxing talent, home of Rocky Marciano and Marvin Hagler, so they went with that. Knockouts aren't supposed to happen in baseball, but it's a good name anyway. Just wondering what their logo is going to look like, because I couldn't find one. There are a few other independent leagues, but none of the team names really stood out to me. And then, of course, there are so many more amateur leagues in the US and around the world. There are probably some really unique names out there. If you know of any, please leave a comment and share with the rest of us. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya!